Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another weekly podcast for HaloLife. This is a weekend review for Friday, February 12th, the final weekend of the off season, if you will. Next week, pitchers and catchers will be reporting for the Angels to Tempe, Arizona, and we will have reports from live action, from bullpen sessions, from workouts with pitchers and catchers within the next week, which is exciting as an Angel fan after everything that we've incurred over the 2021-2020 COVID experience. To finally get baseball next week will be incredibly awesome. And we have some things to talk about from this past week. The Angels made several moves since our last week's podcast. And I'm going to start with Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani was headed to arbitration. The Angels and his agents exchanged numbers back in January. They couldn't agree. Angels offered $3 million. Ohtani's side was offering. Ohtani's side was asking for $3.3 million. Angels were offering $2.5 million, and they couldn't come to an agreement. Well, last week, they reached an agreement on a 2-year, $8.5 million contract that will pay Ohtani $3 million, right in the middle of between Angels and his asking, and then another $5.5 million next year. Why is this significant? Why, as an Angel fan, should we look at this as a victory? And I'll explain. After this year, the only players that we have under contract are Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, and Justin Upton. Ohtani now is the fourth guy that we have under contract. And why it's significant to get him locked up for 2 years is we get rid of that potential arbitration dilemma next year, and they can just go through the winter without having to be concerned about what Ohtani can make. And why that's significant is if, as all Angel fans are hoping, Shohei Ohtani returns to the 2018 form of Shohei Ohtani for a 162-game schedule, Shohei Ohtani would be cashing in a huge way next year in arbitration. I mean, they could have been looking at a $15 to $20 million type of contract being asked in his way. I mean, and again, I'm just going to throw out like the best case scenario. Let's say he goes 15-5 and hits 30 home runs and 100 RBIs for the Angels this year. If you had that kind of a player out in an arbitration market, I can only imagine what an arbitrator would look at that. And I'm sure that they would give Ohtani whatever he was asking on his side. So they eliminate that, and they sign him until his last year of arbitration. So by then, 2 years from now, the Angels will have an idea of who Shohei Ohtani is, what they can expect from him moving forward, and they'll have an idea if this is a guy that they want to re-up and sign long-term, or they may realize he's not that player, or they may realize they can't afford him, and they need to deal him at this point and kind of move him. I don't want to think about that latter one, but those are all three scenarios and possibilities the Angels could be facing as they head into that final year of arbitration. But they clearly, after the last 2 years, have high hopes for Ohtani, but have to be somewhat realistic in what the expectation and potential could be. And this 2-year, $8.5 million gives them kind of a 2-year period to see what Ohtani can do at the big league level. And I think evaluators, scouts, other GMs will have a clearer picture of Ohtani's long-term value as a big leaguer, as a two-way player, or as a DH strictly, or a pitcher strictly. I think at the end of this 2-year period, The Angels will know that, and other teams will know that as well. So it's also big because after this year, I mentioned those four players, only four players that are under contract. Ohtani's the only one that is a starting pitcher that will be under contract. Of course, they have Griffin Canning, Jaime Barria, Patrick Sandoval, all these young prospects, Detmers, Rodriguez, Suarez. All these guys are under team control, and they'll be with them next year. But all the free agents to be, Bundy, Heaney, Quintana, Cobb, those guys are going to be free agents next year. So they have at least one starter signed going into next season, assuming Ohtani returns to the mound. So that's a big signing, a big win for them, and getting them through that 2-year period to where they really see what kind of commodity Ohtani is long term for the Angels' future. So on the other side, that was the extension side. The Angels went out, as we suspected they would, after last week's acquisitions of Alex Cobb and Dexter Fowler to kind of round out the rotation and fill the right field void. They made smaller signings this week. We thought that would happen. It started over the weekend with the first of two outfielders they picked up this last week. The first one being Juan Lagares from the New York Mets. The guy had spent 8 seasons playing for the New York Mets, and their outfielder was a Gold Glove outfielder for the Mets, and spent most of last year at the alternate side. I think he only got in 2 at-bats for the Mets last year, went 0 for 2, but found a little bit of a resurgence here this year in the Dominican League, in Leadham, and actually was on the Caribbean Series champion Dominican Republic team, actually won the series MVP for them. His bat came alive. He was hitting well over 300, showed some pop, hit some home runs, and his defense was there. Now he's 32 years old come this next month, March 17th, and the Angels have to be realistic about his possibilities, but this guy could really fill in well as a 4th or 5th outfielder. He's probably lost a few steps in the defensive area. He's probably not the Gold Glover at 32 that he was at 25, 26, 27. But he can provide solid defense. He's a guy you could feel comfortable probably putting at all 3 positions if you had to. And a guy that could come in and support you defensively in the late innings potentially for Fowler or for Upton even. And so I think Lagares could be an interesting guy to look at. I think he's a non-roster player, so he's going to have to prove himself to the club in spring training. But look out for Juan Lagares. He'll be a fun guy to watch. And the second guy they just picked up on Thursday is John Jay. John Jay, 35 years old now, and interesting kind of career arc for him at this point. He played in the University of Miami in the mid-2000s with Ryan Braun and Yonder Alonso and those types. They came up with the Cardinals, and his rookie year was the second to final season of Albert Pujols' tenure in St. Louis. So he played with Jay. Jay played with Pujols for his first 2 years of Jay's career. And if he makes the club this year, he could potentially be with Albert Pujols during his final season in the big leagues. and Jay, at 35 years old, he's kind of had a couple off seasons. He could be winding down a career around the same time as well as Albert Pujols. But Jay's an interesting guy. For his career, he's hit over 1,000. He's got over 1,000 career hits. He's appeared in over 1,200 MLB games. He's a lifetime 283 hitter with a 348 on base for his career. These guys appeared in 67 different playoff postseason games. And, of course, that title they won with Pujols in 2011 with the Cardinals. But he's a Joe Madden former player. Madden brought him in 2017 on his Cubs team. And he's definitely a guy they're going to get a serious look, like Lagares, at potentially giving the Angels that extra outfielder. Both those guys will be battling, I believe, with Scott Schebler, another non-roster draftee pickup, former Red and Brave, as well as Taylor Ward, who's a lot of folks before last week, before the Fowler signing, and then these two signings, Ward looked like he might be the favorite for right field. Ward now finds himself kind of battling for that corner outfield, first, third utility spot on the team, but I think it's going to be a good battle. Look to see that as one of the key battles in spring training, who gets that extra outfield job, whether it's Jay, Lagares, Ward. I'm not going to count out Scott Schebler. Guys hit, I think, 20 to 30 home runs before in his major league career, so you got to keep him in mind as well. So 2 more outfield additions, gonna definitely help the Angels behind Upton, Trout, and Fowler. And more importantly, I think it's just worth mentioning, Joe Indell and Brandon Marsh, we have not forgotten them. These guys are going to be key to the Angels' future. Joe Indell's 21 years old. Brandon Marsh is 23 years old. They missed a whole year of minor league baseball development. Having at-bats at Salt Lake is going to be crucial for both of those guys, so that when they do come up and they are ready, that they're going to be ready long term. So I think we're going to see both those guys, as progression goes as expected this year at Salt Lake. We can expect to see them late in the season for the Angels and getting them ready for, long-term baseball careers that start with the club in late 21 and in the whole 22 season. So, just important to give those guys development. We're all eager to see them. We're all eager to see them perform. Joe Adell got rushed to some degree last year. He didn't have a year of AAA to develop. And we got to remind ourselves, a lot of people have given up on Joe Adell, and I don't think that's fair at all. If we looked at Mike Trout, his rookie season, when we first called him up at 19 years old, the way we look at Joe Adell at 20 coming up, a lot of people would have given up on Mike Trout as well. I mean, Mike Trout struggled his first time at that young age at the big league. He needed more time to develop, and I think Joe Adell in a similar boat. We're not going to compare anybody to Mike Trout, but just from a developmental standpoint, Joe just needs those reps. He needs those at bats, and he'll get his confidence, and he'll be ready the next time he's at the big league. So, one last non-roster pickup that was an infielder. A veteran infielder, another guy who's played 8 major league seasons. That's Phil Gosselin. He's a utility infielder, 32 years old, lifetime 261 hitter. He's played 354 games in the big leagues, most recently with the Philadelphia Phillies last season. Guy plays all over the field. You look at his career, he's played over 100 games at second, 40 at third. He's played 28 in the corner outfield spots, another 16 at first and 16 at shortstop. So he's a guy you can put all over the field as a super utility guy. And so Gosselin's going to be an interesting guy to follow. For another battle, when you look at the infield, we mentioned Ward. He kind of, as an outfielder, kind of falls into that mix. So you can expect Gosselin to be battling with Ward, as well as Luis Rengifo, Matt Thaiss. Last week's pickup, Rabil Garcia, Kian Wong, even Franklin Barreto. Sorry, if he's available, I know he's coming off an injury. All those guys are going to be in the mix for that utility infield spot and getting a spot to kind of be that 5th or 6th infielder. So a lot of guys in the mix, a lot of guys with big league experience picked up this last week before camp opens. So it'll be exciting to watch. And these are the things I really get up for when it comes to spring training. There's 2 things. It's one, watching these veterans and how they battle with young prospects in spring training, and second is looking at the young prospects. Usually the first 2 or 3 weeks of camp, you'll get to see Marsh, Adell, even guys like Jordan Adams and Jeremiah Jackson, Kyron Paris. These guys are going to get some ABs in the A games, and it'll all be fun to watch those guys and how they progress, how they hit the ball. Although they're not going to make the opening day roster, most likely we are going to see them in the future, and I always love seeing those guys in spring training. So as pitchers and catchers report next week, the Angels did make one additional pickup at pitching, and they made a trade. They acquired Aaron Slagers from the Tampa Bay Rays for either cash or a player to be named later, yet to be determined. He's a 28-year-old reliever, and he's really intriguing if you look at his past. So he's spent parts of 4 seasons in the majors. His first 2 were in the Twins system, which where he was developed, and the last 2 were with the Tampa Bay Rays. And he had a bit of a small little breakout last year, late in the season. He came in and pitched really well. He pitched very well in the ALCS in 2 games against the Houston Astros as the Rays defeated the Astros and headed to the World Series. But he came up through the Twins system as a starter. In fact, at AAA Rochester in 2017, he was 15-4 as a starter. So he's converted the bullpen. I think he made 1 start last year for the Rays, and that may have been as an opener. I'm not certain. With Cash likes to use that opener, but I see him fitting as in the bullpen. Probably that's where we can expect to see him, but still an intriguing guy to look at as somebody that may potentially have the opportunity to get a start again here or there, or even be developed as a starter. But Aaron Slager's his recent pickup. He doesn't throw the ball incredibly hard, but his StatCast percentile rankings are very positive as far as barrel up percentage and how he's hard hit. He doesn't throw the ball real hard, but he has a fastball and a sinker that are both right about 91.5 miles per hour on average. And then he has a change and a slider that are all right around the same mid-80s speed as well. So I think it's very deceptive to the big league hitters that are seeing these pitches at these different velocities, but that have different movement. So Aaron Slagers will be an interesting guy to look at battling for his spot in this Angels pen. As we go into camp now, we have Rizal Iglesias as our kind of shoe-in at closer, and Mike Myers, Felix Pena, Ty Buttrey, Alex Claudio, guys like Slagers, Junior Guerra that we just signed the other week, Luke Bard, and of course guys like Berea and Sandoval could be playing in the mix as well. So there's a lot of opportunity. I'm probably missing some guys. I'm just going off the top of my head here, but we're going to go into camp right now. The Angels are going into camp with that as the mix, and then you've got a slew of non-roster invites that could fit into this as well. Gerardo Reyes is another guy. The Jose Alberto Rivera, the Rule 5 pick. He needs to make the roster or be offered back to the Mets. So there's another guy that will get a serious look. And I think it's worth mentioning, finally, last thing I'm going to mention is the non-roster invitations that were released this week. So these are the guys that are on minor league contracts or aren't on the 40-man roster and are officially in Major League camp as non-roster invitees. And some of those are those guys that we've mentioned already, that the recent signings. But in addition to that, notably, Brennan Lund is also in the outfield mix, along with one of our top prospects, the Angels' top prospects, Jordan Adams. He'll be in the Major League camp as an outfielder. And the infielder, Jeremiah Jackson, top shortstop prospect, as well as Levon Soto. You might remember he was the other guy the Angels signed from the Braves when they signed Kevin Maitan. Soto's developed really well. And then a fan favorite, Orange County native, Jose Rojas, is going to be back in camp again as an infielder. He'll be fun to watch, see if he can make some noise and potentially sneak into the argument with the infield position. And then in addition to Kurt Suzuki and Max Stassi and Anthony Benboom, they always get a bunch of catchers out there because there's a lot of bullpen sessions, but Jack Kruger and Juan Gratterol will be two intriguing guys to keep an eye on. And of course, in the pitching side, there's 2 guys that are on this non-roster invite that have yet to even pitch a professional game. That's Davis Daniel, a draft pick in 2019 out of Auburn, in addition to the top pick in last year's draft, Reed Detmers. Neither one of those prospects have had a chance yet to play in a minor league game yet, so they'll be intriguing. In addition, Jake Faria, who pitched for Tampa Bay, was the starter there for a while. He's a non-roster invite. He could be in the mix. Thomas Pannone, it was another guy who was in Toronto. He pitched and started in the Toronto rotation for a few years. And then there's some intriguing minor league depth players like Jake Reed, Brendan McCurry, and Dennis Brady. Denny Brady. These are all guys that they've picked up from other organizations in recent years. And let's not forget one of our favorite names, Packy Naughton. Packy Naughton was the prospect that came over to the Angels in exchange for Brian Goodwin last summer. And we're all looking forward to seeing Packy on the mound with the Angels in spring training for the first time. So, guys, we're excited. We're going into our last weekend of non-baseball coverage. Next week, I look forward to maybe going over kind of the final look at the rotation as they head into camp. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at all if Perry makes another signing, whether it's a starter or reliever or somewhere else between now and next week's podcast. But we'll follow @_HaloLife to keep up with all that news. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, follow these podcasts on Anchor and Spotify and Google. And I appreciate you watching. Remember, don't take any day for granted and live your life 9 innings at a time. Thank you.